My dad always hated my wife. He didn't disguise his hatred, even when she was right in front of him.
He's an old bastard.
Gladys would cry to me. She was the bigger person whenever they were forced to spend time together, ignoring his insults with a smile. But she let it all out when we left. I eventually stopped trying to force a relationship between the two. In the past few years, my dad had gotten older. His physical health was still good, but his mental state wasn't. He became confused and sometimes aggressive. Some days he'd remember me, others he'd jump at me, demanding I leave. After I took him to an appointment during which he attacked the doctor, I knew he'd never do well with having a stranger care for him. I went over to his place every day. A few weeks ago, Gladys had a day off. She'd been constantly busy and working late before. We planned to go out for a nice meal, but I had to check in on my dad first. I asked her to come with me.
We've had our differences, but he's not doing so well. I'll come.
I thanked her for acting so kind. He probably won't remember you anyway, I laughed sadly. When we arrived, my dad was in bed. I went upstairs to him.
Son?
I hugged him as he got up to greet me. After a few minutes, I told him I was getting a drink. I saw Gladys hovering on the stairs, apprehensive. I gently nudged her. I'm just gonna make a drink. Say hi! She walked up to the door and knocked. I guess I shouldn't have left them alone, but it was only a few minutes. He hadn't seemed aggressive when I greeted him, but I knew that he hated her. I knew that the cane he never used was right next to his bed. Though I can honestly say that I didn't expect him to hit her over the head 50 times with it. I called the police. My dad was confused. He didn't know who these people were or why they were taking him away. He said he didn't even know who I or Gladys were. He was taken to a hospital. I had to show the police all the texts between me and Gladys, her complaining about my dad's behavior. His doctor confirmed he'd been showing increased signs of aggression. It all fit together perfectly. You see, my dad always hated my wife, and he was right to. The woman had been seeing Ron for years behind my back. When I discovered the deceit, I was livid. I had proof that he was aggressive, and his memory was bad and untrustworthy. I knew he'd never be able to remember me coming back into his room while that two-timing bitch stood there. He'd forget how I grabbed his cane too, and if he did, no one would believe him anyway.